Hello, everybody. I hope that you are all doing well. I'm going to do a pulse check. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to ask you two questions, actually. My first question is going to be, how many of you have been to a doctor's office and without much investigation or diagnosis even, have been given some type of antibiotic, prescribed some type of antibiotic? That's quite a few of you. What if I told you that moment, although seemingly innocuous, is actually leading us to the current predicament that we are in? And I'll elaborate further on that. But let me ask you my second question. How many of you have watched Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius when you did growing up? Awesome. Well, I'll hopefully tie those two together for you by the end of this talk. But let me go back to that first question. We are currently at the precipice of an antibiotic-resistant crisis. What is antibiotic resistance, you may ask me? Well, antibiotic resistance are the evasion mechanisms that bacteria have developed in order to subvert our current first line of care, namely antibiotics. And it is the derivative of several issues: misuse of antibiotics, overuse of antibiotics, and you've guessed it, overprescription. And it's a major, imminent issue. In fact, the UN had a forecasting report that if by 2050 nothing is done, that an individual will die every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds. That means that if I took the full 5 minutes to have this talk, that 100 individuals would have passed away. Now, some of the supervillains in this current battle that we see ourselves in are methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, also known as MRSA, multi-drug-resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa, also known as MDR, P. aeruginosa, and carbapenem-resistant Endobacteriaceae, also known as nightmare bacteria. Now, do you know the street cred that you have to have in order to be called nightmare bacteria? These infections are not fun. Granted, no infection is fun. But these are particularly nasty. And we are currently running on a therapeutic pipeline that is at a deficit. In fact, the WHO, and I'm talking about the World Health Organization, I'm not talking about the band, evaluated all 43 antibiotics in the 2021 antibiotic pipeline. And what they found is that none of these antibiotics were able to address the issue of superbugs. So what do we do now? We currently find ourselves at the precipice of this crisis, but I'm an optimistic individual. So this brings me to my second question, the Jimmy Neutron one. I remember when I was a kid watching an episode of Jimmy Neutron, and he had shrunk himself down to this microscopic size. And when he was shrunk down to this size, he encountered these entities. They were these very interesting looking beings with like this icosahedral head, a tail, and these little spindly fibers coming out of its tail, kind of looking like a spider. And he observed that these entities were attacking bacteria. I would later come to find out that what those entities are called bacteriophages. And they are currently what is leading my research. Now, bacteriophages are viruses, don't get scared, that only infect bacteria. And they have been considered by the WHO to be a part of the new antibacterial pipeline of which we should be putting our resources into. So currently, at my lab, what we are doing is we are taking a hydrogel, which is a hydrophilic polymer network. Now, fancy terms, I know. But hydrogels are commonplace. They've been used in face masks, in contact lenses, and in wound dressings. And that's what we're currently trying to develop. So our particular hydrogel that was developed in the lab has a bacteria responsive element. So it's only supposed to release therapeutic in the presence of a bacterial infection, so that we can take stewardship and ownership of how we're delivering these therapeutics. My job is to characterize 2 bacteriophages that we currently have in lab for multi-drug-resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa. I'm characterizing them by pH, by size, seeing how they do in buffers, seeing how they're affecting our hydrogel's degradation mechanism, so that they can comfortably sit in this chariot wound dressing and take us into a post-antibiotic era, not with fear, but with faith. Thank you.